In the UK, we have some impressive roller coasters, but we also have some duds. So in this list, I'm going to cover 10 rough rides that you should avoid at all costs. Now I'm going to start small with a ride that some of you may not have experienced firsthand, and that is Antelope at Gulliver's. Now this is a really strange ride because it wasn't built by any of the big manufacturers. In fact, it was constructed in-house. And I think that shows. The profiling on this is just wrong. It is bizarre. You go flying down the first drop and then you barely make it back up the other side. And it jiggles you around and it is just uncomfortable. In fact, I just watched a video this morning of Joe who was there yesterday, and I believe the end of the ride, there's a kind of flat section which was supposed to be for a splashdown. I don't know if I've ever seen a splashdown on a wooden coaster, and it didn't work. So listen, it's a credit if you've never been on it and you've got kids, because you ain't getting into this park without kids. Give it a shot, but yeah, let me know what you think, because I'm not in a rush to do it again. This next one is probably going to upset some of you. Now, there are definitely fans of this ride, and there are some who agree with me on this one. Down in Thorpe Park, there is a roller coaster that I am not in a hurry to get back on, and that is Saw the Ride. Now, this is a Gulliver ride, and to be honest with you, I'm not a massive fan of Gulliver coasters. I think their train designs are terrible, their restraints are bulky and uncomfortable, and that just adds on this ride. Now, I've heard some people say they've had smooth rides on this, others like myself have had horrific rides. My daughter went on this and her ears were battered back and forth, so definitely not a comfortable one. So maybe if you're lucky you'll have a smooth ride, but yeah, it's a roller coaster that looks very impressive off-ride. I'm not sure I'll be going back on it again. Now, there is absolutely no danger that anybody is going to argue with me on this one. There is a coaster in Blackpool that should be destroyed. In fact, the entire model should be destroyed because they are everywhere. It is a cookie cutter coaster, and that is a Vekoma SLC. In particular, this one is Infusion. Now, formerly known as Traumatizer before it moved to Pleasure Beach, that's a more appropriate name because it's an absolute headbanger. And yeah, somebody asked me to do an all-day challenge on it. I'm not sure if I'm that daft. So there's a little kids ride that is horrific. It's in a park that some of you may not visit very often, and that would be Flamingoland. Now, they have a runaway mine train, I think it's called. It's basically a mine train, right? Well, it's called runaway or not, I'm not sure. It's nothing like the runaway mine train that you're probably familiar with at Disney. That's a fantastic ride. It's long, it's graceful, it's beautiful, it's enjoyable. You want to do it again. This one in Flamingoland? No, just absolutely no. Now, get it, I am a grown man, and it's a kid's ride. That's not the problem, because my issue with this is not the restraint system. It's not like I can't fit, it's more the profiling of it. In fact, if you're off-ride and you're watching this, you will see people just getting yeeted to the side. It is so bad, so bad. Why does it exist? I'm going to head back down to Thorpe Park again for another coaster. Now, this is a weird one because there's a clone of this in the UK that is very different. So the ride in question is Colossus, right? It was, I believe, the world's first 10 inverting coaster. It has since been replicated. The version that we have in Flamingoland is subtly different, right? The lift hill's a little bit different, but the rest of the layout is basically the same. And they are night and day. Like Colossus, I hate. I guess another one that I probably won't go on when I visit Thorpe Park. I mean, I might. I'm not going to be in a rush to. Sick, on the other hand, when I'm in Flamingoland, I'll lap the thing. It's great. And I think the biggest problem with this, it's not the profiling, it's not the track, it's the trains. Those trains on Colossus are horrific, absolutely disastrous. Like, I'm a little guy, right? People meet me in parks and go, oh, you're shorter than I thought, right? I'm only 5'6". I am not a big guy, and I struggle to get in these. They are horrific. If you're tall, good luck. If you're in the back row, you've got no leg space. If you're in the front row, maybe a little bit. They are just terrible. Now, I'd love to say replace it with the trains from Flamingoland, the lap bar versions. Somebody said that that's not that straightforward, that although they're the same ride, the trains aren't compatible. Don't know if that's true, but if Thorpe Park are going to keep this hanging around, it'd be fantastic if they can do something, because those trains absolutely kill the ride. Okay, we're halfway through this list right now. If you are enjoying this one, hit that like button. And a bit like broken rides, I have a broken counter. But if you hit subscribe, it will go up. So staying down south, there's another park and another coaster that I have mentioned before. And this time I'm going to go over to Chessington and what I think is probably the worst coaster there. That would be Rattlesnake. Now, if you've seen my review of the park, I mean, I said in that off-ride, this looks okay. You go, oh, that's a wild mouse. That'll be fun. That'll be good. I'll enjoy it. You won't. You absolutely won't. Definitely do not go anywhere near this thing. First of all, I've said before, the operations on this are terrible. They favour fast track over the normal queue to the point that the normal queue doesn't move, which is just daft. I don't understand the operations. But once you get on this thing, now, if I go on it, I'm on my own. There's no separators between the two seats, so you're just sliding from side to side and getting battered. The profiling is terrible. I mean, it is kind of Wild Mouse-esque, so it's supposed to have that kind of, you know, flinging you around corners, but it's just really, really bad. And frustratingly, they are doing a ton of work in that area right now. The whole Mexican section's getting ripped up and rebuilt. It's going to be their Project Play, I think it is. Rattlesnake doesn't seem to be included. It seems that it's just outside the boundary of what they're doing, and it's still going to be there. So that's a nightmare. Like, why they didn't just fix this or scrap it, I do not know. Right, there's a ride here that is very, very Marmite, because you either love this ride or you hate this ride. And to be honest with you, I think it's more that it's showing its age than anything else, because I have had some good rides on it and I have had some terrible rides on it. And that is the Smiler at Alton Towers. Now, again, it's another Gerstlauer. There's a recurring theme here. I think the only Gerstlauer I've been on that I've enjoyed is Anubis and Plopsaland. Generally speaking, not a fan of them. And I think, again, so many people have said, could this have lap bars? Maybe. Again, don't think I've seen Gerstlauer with lap bars. It's just, listen, it's an engineering masterpiece to have crammed something that complex into such a small footprint, and nobody's beat it, right? Nobody has done 14 inversions or more. Possibly nobody ever will. But it is not comfortable anymore. After 10 years, it is rough, it has shown its age, and it needs some TLC. Now, I don't think the park's ever gonna, okay, ever is maybe a strong word. I don't think the park is gonna get rid of this anytime soon. It's still a world-class coaster. Then again, King Dakar was too. That got binned out of the blue, so you never know. In any case, much though I appreciate this for what it is rough as hell, and yeah, not one that I rush to every time I visit Alton Towers. This next ride was launched in the same year as the Smiler, and I honestly don't understand why this exists. So there's a model of coaster known as the Zamperla Volare, which is basically a cheap and nasty flying coaster. Now, you think flying coaster, you probably think of something like Galactica at Alton Towers, or maybe Flyover in Phantasialand, right? Fly is, I would say, the pinnacle of flying coasters. It's comfortable, the whole loading and unloading mechanisms, just beautiful. Galactica, kind of halfway in between. It's not too uncomfortable, but then when you're stuck on the brake runs, it's horrific. This thing, which came after Galactica, and is still manufactured as far as I'm aware, Hero at Flamingoland is terrible. You are in this cage, you climb up these stairs into this thing, and then it lifts you into the flying position. You've got this rubber mat under your chin, which is just not very hygienic because everybody's sweating or whatever into it. It's disgusting, and it's just not comfortable. So I don't understand why this still exists. I certainly don't understand why they still manufacture this, and I would absolutely get rid of it. I don't think there is anybody who will disagree. How Digital Dan managed an entire day on this ride, I do not know. That's off to you, mate. Right, this next coaster, I really want to love. I really, really, really want to love it, but in its current state, I don't. And I think most people, I know some people who have been strong advocates of this ride who are now starting to change their mind because it is just starting to show its age. And it's a lot older than any of the rides that I've talked about so far. And it is Grand National at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. Now, at the time of recording, it is closed for essential maintenance because it's on its 90th birthday this year. And listen, it's impressive that these coasters last that long. The ride layout is fantastic, right? It's mostly hidden. You can't really see it when you're in the park. You can see a little bit of it around the perimeter. It's a great concept, right? The Mobius loop, there's only a couple of these left now. You know, you start on one side, you end on the other. The racing element, the number of hills and drops and stuff, it's a beautiful concept. It really, really is, and I want to love this coaster. The trains that they have right now are horrific. Now, so many people have said the trains are too heavy. You know, the trains were replaced, I think, 2004 2004, something like that, maybe 2014. There's a 4 in it, I'm sure there's a 4 in it, after there was a big fire. And these new trains are so heavy compared to the predecessors. Now, I don't think I experienced them. If I did as a kid, I don't remember them. But I think that those trains kill it. As I say, I want to love this ride, but as it stands right now, it's one that I'll maybe go on once in a blue moon and then come off if I've got a chiropractor booked for the next day. So, there's quite a lot of coasters in this list that you can have good days, you can have bad days. And I suppose that's true for a lot of coasters, but some of them just are at the extreme. The next one, and I'm going to stay in my favourite park, I'm going to stay in Blackpool, is the big one. Now again, this is a coaster that is starting to show its age. It has just turned 30 the other year. Now, most of you will probably know, 1994 when this launched was the year of the coaster here in the UK. We got Nemesis, we got the big one, and we got Shockwave. 3 fantastic coasters. Nemesis has been completely retracked. I know some people prefer the original, but they've spent a lot of money and time fixing that up. Shockwave, it's had new trains, not a new track, but the trains themselves make a big difference. The big one, now they showed signs that they were doing some stuff because for many years they were retracking portions of this with Tazaker. I'll be honest, I don't think I've noticed a huge difference in those sections, and they have stopped that retracking work for now. There's lots of rumblings going around about why the contract ended, they fell out with Tazaker, they're looking at someone else, they've given up. I don't know. I do not know, the park's not said anything. But evidently they started to do some work to prolong this ride, and I'm just not sure that it's actually done very much. Now, a ride that is comparable to this and I really want to get on is Magnum XL over in Cedar Point. It's basically the same attraction, different layout, but it's the same aerodynamics ride, and from what I've heard, it is so much better than the big one. So this has a lot of potential, it just seems to have fallen short. That said, it is an iconic part of the Blackpool skyline and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. I think even if the park wanted to get rid of this, it's a massive undertaking. So they're going to do what they can as long as they can, but there's going to come a point where it's just not viable. And it's either going to be a complete rework. Some people have said RMC it. People say RMC everything, right? Somebody's going to RMC some Dodgems at some point. Or I don't know, but in its current state, you can have some good rides on it, don't get me wrong. I went on it on opening day, final ride of the day, and it was okay. It was okay, I kind of enjoyed it. But I've had so many where you're just getting shuggled about, or you just sit there, like that turnaround section, it bounces so much, you're just like, this thing's coming off the track. Now, I know how roller coaster safety works, that's highly unlikely. But it needs some TLC, more than it's been given lately. So as it stands, yeah, not a massive fan. Right, so that's 10 rides, which is what the title said. I do have an honorary mention of an 11th coaster, and it's from my favourite manufacturer. So, in Drayton Manor, they have a little coaster. I incorrectly said it was an Intamin coaster, which at the time I thought seemed strange because Intamin are fantastic. They manufacture some of the world's best coasters, and this is not on that list. Turns out, it's because it's a Gerstlauer, it is not Intamin, and it's Troublesome trucks. Now, again, kids ride. Not a thrill coaster in any shape or form, but it's also not comfortable. And again, part of this is the trains. It's really uncomfortable to sit in. I know it's a kid's ride, but you're going to have parents going on with their children, right? So it needs to accommodate larger people. The backrests are pretty uncomfortable, but the profile is terrible as well. It just flings you around in weird ways, and it is just not great. So there's an 11th coaster in a top 10 list. There's a selection of rough rides here in the UK, some of which may not be around for much longer. If you want to see rides that disappeared last year, take a look at this list up here. I'll see you over there.